Hey YouTube, I hope that this video finds you well. It's Kel again, and I'm coming back tonight with a follow-up on a previous video that we did. And it was called something along the lines of the ABCs of therapy, or the ABCs of rational emotive behavior therapy, something along those lines, but you'll see ABC in the title. And I'm going to give a real quick refresher. Sorry, my cough is bad tonight, but I'm going to give a real quick refresher. And then, so in the future, when we discuss the ABCs, you'll know what I'm talking about based on that video. If you have not seen that video, you will probably, unless you are very psychologically familiar with therapy, you may very well want to go back and just watch that, because it's like 10 or 15 minutes, but it will really give context to what we're going to talk about tonight. Because what we're talking about tonight is the first of a few videos on what are called cognitive distortions. Okay, so, and let me just remind you really quickly what we talked about in that previous video. But so I have it here, and so you can see it's basically like over here on the this side, it talks about how if there's an activating event and you have a rational belief about it, then you will have more healthy negative emotions. But if you have the same activating event but you have an irrational belief about it, then you're going to have more unhealthy negative emotions. So essentially, we talked about how if something happens in your external reality and you have a certain belief about it, that you will end up having an emotion because of that belief that you have. Okay, so what we want to talk about tonight are cognitive distortions. And the cognitive distortions happen at this B state. So in the ABC, format, again, go back and watch the video, but this is just a recap. There's activating event, that's the A. You have your belief about what happened, and that is the B. And then you have C is your emotional consequence. So kind of, if you think about it, you're like taking an event in, you're processing it through your belief system, and then you will end up having some emotion about it based on whatever belief you have about it, okay? But tonight, we're going to talk, in the next few nights, we're going to talk about what are called cognitive distortions, which happen, oh my goodness, at that B level. So in the B step of the ABC, you are going to, you could very possibly, if you have an irrational thought pattern, again, go back and watch the video, but if you have an irrational belief at that B step, then again, you're probably going to have some more extreme reaction or extreme emotion that seems out of context with what's going on. And it might not even seem out of context. You might just have an irrational belief, but we just want to talk about what some of the cognitive distortions could be tonight, just so that we can help everybody think more rationally and clearly and less distortedly. So, because cognitive distortions are where a lot of people mess up in communication. So, we're going to talk about what those are tonight. So, the first one that we want to talk about is called all or nothing thinking. Now, I did a previous video on it called the good bad split. I think I've done that video. Excuse me. It's called the good bad split. Now, that is kind of similar to what this cognitive distortion is. So this cognitive distortion is all or nothing thinking. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Like, one is like, if I'm not perfect, then I have failed. So you're kind of like one or the other. There's a strong basic divide between two different kind of extremes. And you can't see, like, okay, so in the example I just gave, if I'm not perfect, then I have failed. That is all or nothing thinking, because you're either all good or you're horrible and all bad. But there's no, like, in between. And in psychology, we love, so that's kind of like black or white thing, also called black or white thinking. Because it's just, again, you're kind of like either or between two extremes. And in therapy, we really like to help people work on the gray beliefs. So having beliefs that are nuanced, having things that might seem like it's one or the other, but really you can find some kind of rational in between about it. So another example of that one is like either I have to do it right or not at all. So again, there's no, like, a gray area, and that would be, if I do my best, that's what matters, you know, and if it's not perfect, it still could be good enough. So, sorry, the cough is like, okay, so you understand how all of those things, there's basically just limiting or cognitive distortions are when something happens and you're processing it through your belief system. Cognitive distortions can be just kind of like a little bit of a glitch there where you're not totally, you know, seeing something rationally, and therefore, again, you're going to have a more extreme response. If you feel like, if I don't do this perfectly, then I have failed, then you're going to have a more extreme emotional response, whether that's shame, whether that's anxiety, you know. But if you have the rational belief of, as long as I do it my best, that's good enough, you know, you will probably be more centered and less extreme emotionally. So again, that one's called all or nothing thinking. And perfectionists are particularly prone to that. They might even think, if I'm not perfect, I'm not lovable. There's like a whole way of, you know, there's a lot of different cognitive distortions that can be specific, but also represented, like, fall under the category of all or nothing thinking. So that's just one. Another one is overgeneralizing. So the definition of this one is seeing a pattern based on a single event or being overly broad in the conclusions that we draw, right? So an example of this could be if you were saying, gosh, it seems like there's a lot of negative news articles or something like that. Overgeneralizing would be jumping to the conclusion that, like, everything is bad because we're, you know, you're seeing some negative news articles or whatever, but it's basically like you see a pattern and then you're basically applying it to everything instead of just kind of leaving it at, like, hey, I see that pattern, you know, and that's interesting, but it doesn't necessarily mean it applies to everything. Now, this is right, like a lot of racial stereotypes are, you know, where someone might observe something in one person and then the cognitive distortion would be to apply it to everybody, right? So, and I admit I have been not guilty of the racial ones so much, but like you know, everyone has typically done most or all these cognitive distortions at one point in time. So that is called overgeneralizing. Again, you're seeing a pattern. So sorry. You're seeing a pattern, and then, which could be like right, and you could see a correct pattern, but then what the cognitive distortion part is, you're taking it and you're just applying it to everything instead of just leaving it at that pattern or that, you know, specific subtopic or whatever. So, okay, another one is called the mental filter. So only paying attention to certain types of evidence, and typically this is like you're only paying attention to certain types of evidence that fit your belief system or fit your narrative in your mind, and you're discarding everything else. So if you think the world is crappy, then all the positive things that happen to you, you're going to discard and have a mental filter for. If you think the world is amazing, then the cognitive distortion is you're not probably seeing some of the bad things that happen. Some, you know, there is tragedy in the world, and there are injustices, and you shouldn't be like, everything's amazing, you know? So, now it's one thing to say, hey, there's a negative thing happening, and yet I can try to find the good in it, right? Like that's a more rational belief. But it's typically, like, again, it could be a totally different, like if you're extreme on the political spectrum, either way, we see this all the time, right? It's the mental filter of, if something fits what you think, say, about the other party or whatever, you're going to read and remember the things that basically align with whatever your thought pattern is, and you will just discard the rest. So that is a cognitive distortion. During this period of time, we are all guilty of that in numerous ways, and I think we can only really hope for more balanced, rational, nuanced thought that is capable of saying, hey, that might be true, But also let me try to take into account all the evidence here and see it all instead of just seeing the stuff that would fit my narrative. Let's say you're on a jury and a mental filter would be like, if you think the guy is or the girl is guilty from the beginning, then as the evidence is displayed, you're going to only hold on to what you already think is the case. So like the person's guilty or not guilty, and you'll just, it's a filter that you're basically saying, I'm not going to look at all the evidence. I'm only going to look at the stuff that validates what I already believe. Okay. So that is, my cough is insane tonight. I don't know what's going on. So I'm actually going to cut this one short. I was going to do another one, but we're just going to cut it there because my cough is like, oh, great. I think it's allergies. I'm not sure, but, so I hope that this, again, to have this make sense, know that it is at the B part of the ABC, the belief part. And basically it is a form of irrational thinking. These cognitive distortions are common to almost everyone until you start to really recognize them in yourself so that you can think more rationally and logically. But if I would highly recommend, again, if you have not seen my previous ABC video, go watch that. And then the next couple of podcasts I'm doing, I'm going to speak on a few more of these cognitive distortions. I think like maybe 3 or 4 each time. And so it just helps you see in your communication style, do you have any errors in your, the way that you think, right? Because we all want to think rationally and logically, and yet we're all biased. We're all irrational at some times, right? So, but identifying these cognitive distortions can help you to, like, I'm going to give you another example just as an aside. Like, I might be mentioning this again in future podcasts, but I'm not sure. But words like all or never or always, usually always and never, are almost always cognitive distortions. So just know, if you hear yourself say you're in a heated argument with your partner and you say something like, you always do that, or the trash never goes out, or, things like that, just know you're not contributing. Number one, you're thinking in a way that's cognitively distorted. Number two, you're also not contributing to healthy communication because you're using the cognitive distortions, which it's just like already what you're saying is kind of negating itself because you're saying always or never, which there is very little in this world that is always or never. Now, some things, I won't even get into it, but basically, like, there are a few things that could be true about those words, but most things are not subject to always or never, especially when it comes to people's behavior, especially when it comes to like relationships with your person. If you find yourself saying always or never in any kind of accusatory tone or like pissed off tone, question yourself and just say, wait a second, am I communicating that well? Am I thinking clearly here? Because it might be often. I think sometimes like a word like often or seldom or, it can be used in place of those and be much more constructive to healthy communication. So that was just an aside, that is a type of cognitive distortion. I guess it would fall under like all or nothing thinking. But we'll get into my cough is killing me. We'll get into it in the future, but just know I'm sending you love tonight. I wanted to pop on and just share what I know, share what 20 years of therapy has really helped me see with people and also in myself. And I feel like if we all just share what we're good at or what we have experienced, we'll be leading like a lot happier and healthier society, and living in a healthier and happier society where we hopefully communicate better and think better and feel better, So that is my point in sharing these tonight. I will pop on in the next few days and I will have a couple more videos like this on these cognitive distortions. And I hope that if you don't have a lot of psychological background, I hope these little psychoeducational videos are helpful so that you can, hear yourself if you're talking to someone, you're saying always or never, especially in a conflict. Those are good words to try to avoid. So anyways, I will see you next time, and I hope that you are happy and healthy and wherever you are, and I will see you then.